Mr. S. Govind Swaminathan, former Advocate General of Tamil Nadu. He has been a former trustee and currently advisor to the Citizen, Consumer and Civic Action Group, an organization which is dedicated to creating awareness among consumers about their legal rights and helps them to realize the same, and has won numerous national awards for its pioneering work. He has been an invitee to the International Visitorship Program to the government of US in the year 2000. He is a founding director of the Nani Palkiwala Arbitration Center, a center recognized by the Madras High Court to render administrative assistance in arbitration matters. He is also a member of the Madras High Court Arbitration Committee and a trustee of the renowned Dr. M.S. Swaminathan Research Foundation, which is an agricultural research and study committee of the Tamil Nadu Electricity Regulatory Commission. He is also a member of the management committee of the National College, Trichy, which is one of the oldest educational institutions in Tamil Nadu, and was founded by his family. He was recently awarded the Service Award in 2018 by Sri Ramakrishna Vivekananda Trust for his service without expectation to the Cancer Institute and the Avoy Home Orphanage. It would be our pleasure and honor, sir, to hear you and to learn from what you have to share with us this afternoon.
Good afternoon, all of you. Mr. Srinivasan, who the reason I am here today. Much persuasion, he has managed to wean me away from court on a working day. And for his persuasive skills, he should have chosen a career of being a lawyer. But his contributions to the field of education are truly remarkable. I stand with a lot of trepidation in front of so many presiding officers and members of the Consumer Forum. I have stood before many of you as a lawyer arguing a case where the challenge before me is much simpler than what it is now, because nobody expects one-sided. But when I make a presentation, I must ensure that there must be the entire truth must be placed before all of you for you to understand the nuances of what is happening in the field of consumer protection. The field of consumer protection is a vast field, and it's only a very small part of that field which is really actually handled by consumer courts and the judiciary. There is much that operates outside the fora, the consumer fora, which is created under the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act. But there is a large field that operates outside. And today I wanted to emphasize and create an awareness of what is happening outside case laws, happening outside, judgments being given by fora, directions being issued by fora, the Supreme Court coming out with a list of directions. Beyond all this, there is a protection which the government must give. And as a trustee of the Consumer Protection Group, we have for a long time we have advocated that the consumer affairs must be separated from the Ministry of Food and Public Administration. See, this Ministry of Food and Public Administration is a huge billion, right? You need to take food and other essential supplies to India's teeming millions. Elections are won or lost, as we would know from the history of Tamil Nadu electoral politics. If elections are being won or lost on the basis of how effectively your public distribution system works. Therefore, all the secretaries and ministers in that department always concentrate on this food distribution, civil supplies and food distribution. So much so, consumer protection is given a step-motherly treatment. I mean, even if it is not step-motherly, it is not very significantly large. So that is a problem. So we have always said that we must have a separate ministry for consumer affairs, both at the state government level as well as the national level. I am glad to note that in the last 2 to 3 years, there is a lot of activity from the government side with regard to consumer protection. They do not take a hands-on attitude and say everything consumer courts will look after, we don't have to do anything. That attitude has, because this is, we have now woken up to how consumer protection operates in many of the Western countries. It's only now, the last 2 to 3 years, that there has been some awareness of government initiatives to ensure consumer protection. Because the thought was that if government intervenes to protect the interests of the consumer, that may affect the interest of the industry. And therefore, let us just constitute consumer commissions, tell affected consumers, go before the consumer commission and get whatever interest you want, stay away from everything else related to consumer protection. Thankfully, the last 2 to 3 years there has been a huge change in the mindset, which is what I wanted to talk to you about today. I'm sorry that in the invitation, the topic is the topic that I delivered last year. Last year, it is part of the book which will be released tomorrow. So I think we can profit from going through what I said last year. I don't want to repeat what I said last year. Therefore, I thought that I will talk about role of executive initiatives in consumer protection. It is actually consumer protection. More than that, yes, it is part of the statutory powers that are being given to the government. But again, even beyond that, there have been some initiatives taken by the government. So thankfully, after such a long time, there is some proactive stand that has been taken by the government to protect consumer interests, which can go a long way to help all of you to actually address issues relating to consumer. Right? So, the Consumer Protection Act came into effect from 27/2020, that is the 2019 Act, which paved the way to protect, promote, and enforce the rights of class of consumers. In this Act, the important provision is the establishment of a regulatory authority called the Central Consumer Protection Authority, CCPA. So CCPA is doing very good work, and I'm going to tell you a little more about that next. Now, what is the CCPA? It has wide-ranging regulatory powers relating to investigation of violation of consumer rights, to file complaints before Consumer Commission. It can file complaints before the Consumer Commission and refer the matters relating to consumer rights. It can adoption of international governance on consumer rights, research in the field of consumer rights, and it can promote awareness of consumer rights. All a lot of powers are given to CCPA, and it is also empowered to conduct investigation into violation of consumer rights, to issue directions to recall, refund, and discriminatory practices in matters of violation of consumer rights, as well as unfair trade practice, and to modify and to direct modification of false and misleading advertisements or to impose penalty. So primarily, now what has happened? Macro issues go before the CCPA. The CPCPA is now empowered to pass orders, cease and desist orders, which were all earlier available to the MRTP. But unfortunately, the problem happened to be that we were not in a digitally united world. But now with CCPA, you can activate a complaint very easily online. So MRTP was stationed in Delhi, far away from the reaches of the common man here in Tamil Nadu. So that was an access problem. You could not access MRTP easily. But CCPA you can access, and you can send an online complaint. Digitally, you are well connected to CCPA. So there is better awareness that is created through CCPA, and in return, CCPA gives a lot of information from affected consumers on the basis of initiates action and passes orders. It is competent to fine people. Some powers that are available to CCPA, and in the last a slew of orders that are being passed, actions that are being taken, and regulatory measures that are being adopted to ensure that consumer protection is protected. Now let's see a few of these. So next. So CCPA has notified some of the regulations that have been notified by CCPA is guidelines for prevention of misleading advertisements and endorsement for misleading advertisement in 2022. These guidelines inter alia provide for conditions for an advertisement to be non-misleading and valid, certain stipulations in respect of bait advertisements and free claim advertisement. What are these bait advertisements? Bait advertisements are sometimes, you will find an advertisement which says that a usually expensive product is advertised as being available at 30% or 40% of its original cost. So consumers rush either online or to a store that sells it. Consumers rush there. And then you are told that product is sold out, but you have similar products. Please look at it. They don't come with the same price advantage, but you have still to take a look at it. These are bait advertisements. Happens very commonly online. And I don't know how many of you are from Chennai, but if you go to T Nagar, there are shops which have 30% off discount right through the year. If right through the year you are going to sell 30% off, then what is your correct price? So things like bait advertisements. So they happen very commonly. So there is power to stop that. And duties of manufacturers, service providers, advertisers, advertising agencies are also set out there. These guidelines states that due diligence is required for endorsement of advertisement, such that any endorsement in an advertisement must reflect a genuine, reasonably current opinion of the individual, group or organization making such representation, and will be based on adequate information about or experience with the identified goods, products, or services and must not otherwise be deceptive. So this is a large umbrella which is being opened to protect consumers' interests, and it sets out what would constitute deceptive practice. So after a long time, you have some clarity about what exactly constitutes deceptive advertisements. Next. The CCPA very recently guidelines for prevention and regulation of greenwashing and misleading environmental claims 2024, mandating transparency in environmental claims and the guidelines for prevention of misleading advertisements in the coaching sector 2020. These are specific to this. What is greenwashing? Greenwashing is when you advertise and say that a particular product, so the product is actually not satisfying the environment. For example, BP. All of us know BP is British petroleum. BP, a couple of years back, suddenly said we are no longer British petroleum. They are claiming that they are moving away from fossil-based fuels and wind power. Consumer activists took them to court and they were able to demonstrate that this is a big hogwash because only 4% of the total percent of their money, or again, I didn't face the problem. It said